Hey guys, how's it going? It's me, Spastic1477 here again with another review. Today I'll be reviewing Fallout 4, um, and I'm also using a new software to create my thumbnail for the video. I'm using GIMP this time instead of Paint because I realized this has layers and it's free. So I downloaded and installed that. This is actually my first time using it. Well, it was my first time using it. Don't get angry at me too much. I mean, whatever. Anyway, Fallout 4. It was actually my first Fallout game. I haven't played any of the previous ones. I probably should have. But nevertheless, my only experience with Bethesda pre-Fallout 4 was Skyrim. And I feel they play extremely similar to each other. I mean, they are Bethesda games, and that's to be expected, but most of the combat, it's kind of the same. You sneak around, you shoot a guy from about 100 meters away, they turn around, whoa, who is that? Except, unlike Skyrim, in Fallout 4, if you shoot one guy, every enemy in the nearby area will see you, rather than just the one person you shot, as it was in Skyrim. Yeah, but it's not a bad thing. It makes it a bit more challenging. My roommate, who has played previous games, Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, and they're his favourite ones, he said there's a lot less variety when it comes to developing your character in the way you want to play. And I can definitely see that. I've watched a bit of gameplay from both Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas just to kind of get the background information I needed to actually properly make the review. And I noticed there's a lot of diversity in your character. Like, if you make your character extremely dumb, he'll act that way. Whereas in Fallout 4, your perks are just kind of there to give you bonuses rather than to influence your character's decisions and how people around you, how you get treated by people around you. He's also done his Fallout 4 review. I'll put a link in the description if you want to check that out. Yeah, so that's kind of one thing that disappoints me, is that in the previous games there was a lot more variety that you could do with your character, and in this one there's not as much. You get 4 options with basically every dialogue character. You get to be an arsehole, you get to be a fucking wanker, you get to get information, or you get to just be a general, like a nice person. You go, yeah, I'll do that, whatever. But your perks and your attitude and like everything you do doesn't really affect how you interact with NPCs and how the environment interacts with you, which is a little bit disappointing, because that would have added a lot more depth to the game, considering that Bethesda have been developing it for however many years. It just would have made it a bit more interesting. But that being said, the characters and the interactions are not bad. They're actually pretty interesting, and you do get a lot of useful information about the story, the environment, other NPCs. You get information about pretty much anything and everything if you talk to the right people. But it's just that it's so monotone. It's very one way. You get your character's decisions doesn't affect a lot, except for like the ending, which I'm not going to spoil. But yeah, there's a lot of things that you could do that would affect people, but doesn't. It's just a little bit disappointing. It takes away that layer of depth to the game. It just makes it a little bit less interesting to me. But that being said, it's still solid the way it is. It's just not as interesting as it could have been. Other than that, the interaction system is pretty well designed. It's not great, but it's not bad. It's actually pretty good. The combat system is actually really interesting. Me being the first time I played the game, I hadn't seen anything like VATS before. The Vault-Tec assisted targeting system, I think it's called. It's actually really cool. You just pause, or it's not really a pause, you slow it down to a very, very slow crawl, and you target enemies' weak spots with your weapons, and you just start laying into them. And that takes away kind of your stamina sort of thing, AP or whatever it is, action points. So you can only do a certain amount, but it's still really interesting. Like it gives you the chance to be really sneaky if you want, or if you're up close with like a baseball bat or something. It just gives you a chance to get that critical and maybe just absolutely send their head flying about 400 meters up the road. That's another thing. If you target a specific point, the limbs, the head will fall off, and sometimes it's actually the funniest thing. The combat system in general isn't too different from what we've already seen from Bethesda. I mean, what I've already seen from Bethesda, such as like Skyrim and stuff. You walk in, you start pressing your triggers, or whatever you press on your keyboard when you're playing it on PC. I play it on PS4. You just start swinging and hopefully you don't die. And if you get close to dying, you just hit that pause button, go to your menu, a couple fucking potatoes, just eat some shit, and you're almost at full health again. You just start swinging. What I found was a little disappointing, because I'd been told that I booted up the game and they said you're gonna die from a deathclaw straight away. I said, yeah, okay, I'll watch out for that. The first deathclaw I encountered was one of the first missions with the Minutemen, which is actually very early on in the game if you decide to go straight into the story. And basically you find like a full suit of power armor. Given that, it is the shittest power armor in the game, but it is enough to let you take down a deathclaw without dying, which is kind of, I know, a little bit disappointing, but it gives you that kind of, it shows you that you can survive out in the environment, as much as a nuisance that is just to get a power armor like 2 hours into the game. Not even like an hour really, I got mine in 45 minutes. But me being the noob I am, I did die to that deathclaw. Yeah, like, it's a little bit disappointing that you get such a powerful suit of armor within the first few hours of playing the game. But it does show you that there are like different options to explore. Like there are lots of, and if you start exploring the world, you'll find different suits of power armor. Like you've got different types and shit. But yeah, you already get a full set of power armor at the very beginning of the game. It's kind of like you've just been given an unbreakable shield at the start of, I don't fucking know, some RPG. But yeah, it's like getting a really powerful spell at the start of World of Warcraft. Like you're playing level 1 character, you just get fucking, I don't know, I don't play World of Warcraft. You just get some mad skill that'll one-shot anything. It's not exactly like that, but you feel really powerful when you put it on, considering you can take down a deathclaw without losing too much health. But other than that, I don't have a big problem with it. It's not overly OP, you can still die. I mean, I did. And it's not the best suit of power armor, it's the second worst. The worst one is the Raider power armor, which is absolute trash. But other than that, it's not bad. The graphics and stuff are actually pretty good. They're not terrible, but I mean, I played Skyrim on Xbox 360, so the graphics on that were obviously not as good, but I feel as if the people almost had the exact same textures as they did in Skyrim, and they didn't look too much more impressive, I mean, than the characters that were in Skyrim. That's just me saying that, but like, there's some buildings and stuff where you can see that the textures have just been laid on. There's no depth put into it. But other than that, the environments and stuff, they're actually pretty decent, and like some of it's actually really cool. Like the storms and stuff, you got a bit of weather things. There's like nuclear storms, which are actually pretty cool. It's like a green thunderstorm basically, but if you go outside, you get fucked up by radiation. It looks pretty cool, but then you get stuck in a thunderstorm and you realise it's just the same shit, just with a green texture, or like a green lighting effect, and it gets really fucking foggy. But other than that, like it was pretty cool. Like my first experience with it, I thought it was amazing. but I've seen it a couple times now. It just gets less and less impressive as it goes on. I have had a few issues with frame rate, but not too many. It's more when there's a lot of enemies and they're just fucking firing everything, and there's lots of grenades and shit being tossed everywhere. Also, it can happen when you zoom in with a scoped weapon, or if there are just tons of enemies and you're just swinging and parts are flying everywhere. It's not a huge problem, but it is a little bit annoying if it becomes repetitive. I have had a part where I was fighting like maybe 15 to 20 raiders. I was hiding behind a thing and I was just throwing grenades, and I don't know, probably dropped down to about 10 frames per second as they all blew up. Needless to say, I died, but it wasn't fun, really. But that's just showing like the limitations of the console rather than the limitations of the game. But there have been like frame rate issues where it hasn't been the console and actually has been the game. Other than that, it runs pretty smoothly and it's enjoyable. Like there's not a lot of problems. Like I play the game, I can't sit down and play it for hours and hours on end, but I can sit down and play it for maybe 1 or 2 hours, just explore, do some stuff, find some weapons, bit of building. But other than that, the game itself is actually pretty well designed, and I mean, for the amount of time it took them to do what they did, they could have done a lot more. But the game they put out isn't terrible, but it's not the best. On a rating scale, I don't know, I'd give it about a 7.5 out of 10. Just due to the fact, like, there are so many issues with it, and the character development isn't exactly what it could be. The frame rate sometimes drops, the graphics aren't the best, and I did spend a lot of time, as I said, creating and developing this game, and they could have done a lot more with it. But other than that, the game's really good. It's really good. It's pretty good. The story's interesting. The characters are interesting. It's just the development and everything else. My personal enjoyment, I don't know, I give it about an 8 out of 10. I enjoy the game. As I said, I can't sit down and play it for ages, but I do like it. And that brings us to the end of our review. If you enjoyed it, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Hey guys,